Okay, now we're ready to put the roof deck on this, and we've done the slab, we've done the walls now, and then all the joist, and so we need decking to go across this decking. And so to do that, what we're going to do is use a steel deck. This is from page 614 in your book, and you'll see it's a metal deck. It's what we call a ribbed deck, and we'll notice that it looks something like this. It's a roofing deck. You'll notice that 1.5 inch depth spans 4 to 9 feet, so that's going to be great. So we'll just go with the 1.5 inch depth in our deck here. And then, but notice one thing we want to do is finish off the wall and create the parapet before we put the deck in so that the decking can be trimmed right up to the inside edge of the wall. If we look here, we want the decking to come to the inside edge of that wall because we're going to do a parapet. And what do I mean by a parapet wall? Well, let's scroll up here. This is a parapet wall. Here, this is a non-parapet bearing wall, what they call a flush edge bearing wall. But we're going to do a parapet. We're going to build a parapet, and we'll just say 3 courses, 3 block high. And so we're going to move that up so that when we put the deck in, the deck will trim right to the inside of the wall. So let's scroll. Oh, not scroll. Let's go back in here. And so all we really need to do in this case is just extend the wall, okay, up to the parapet height. And to do that, I'm going to come in and go into an elevation. It's probably the easiest way to do that. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Okay, I don't know why that elevation is way down there. Huh, okay. Uh, but So we're just going to add what we're going to do. We can see our little tops of our little joist right there. What we're going to do is add another level in here. And to do that, I'm just going to copy this. Now, the only problem with copying levels, as you will see, when I copy this and I go up another 3 courses, which is 24 inches. So I'm going to type in 24, okay, and create this level 5 or whatever it is. Oops, I didn't mean to put that one in. Then I'm going to select it, break it so that we can see it a little bit better. I'll line that up with that and put this, come on, come on. I'm hitting that. I'll have to zoom in some more. There we go. Okay, so now our wall is 16 feet tall, and we can play with this and line this up, whatever. But now we have our parapet, and I'm going to name it exactly that, top of parapet. So let's zoom in. Sometimes it's hard to select things if you're not close enough. Okay, top of parapet. And so now we have where the parapet's going to end. And so basically what we can do is go in, we can select those walls. I'm just going to use a select all instances since those are the 4 walls that we want to extend or the 4 instances of that wall, so our entire project. And then you'll see right here, the top constraint right now is the top of the wall. I'm just going to change that to the top of the parapet, okay, and then apply it. And boom, now so if we go in back into our 3D view, now this is up where we want it. And now we can come in here and put our deck in, okay. So the next thing we're going to do is just add our deck. Now, the one thing about the decking is that this webbing here, I mean the ribs, those ribs need to be perpendicular with the beam. In other words, they need to run 90 degrees to the joist or beam, how the joist or beam is running. Okay, so we want those ribs running in this direction right here. So that just remember that when we go in there. So what we're going to do is go into structure, and they don't really have a structural roof mode. We have to use a structural floor. Um, And all you're doing is it's how you develop the floor system. And we're going to go in here and you'll see there's a 3-inch lightweight concrete on metal deck. Okay, we don't want the concrete, or we don't need the concrete. We will when we do floors, but and I'm just going to go ahead and edit this type. We're going to duplicate it, and then I'm just going to call this a 1.5-inch metal deck, and I'm going to say only here in small letters. Now we've opened up and renamed that 3.5 3-inch deck, and what we're going to do now is edit this. You'll see here's our deck, and then here's our concrete, and of course we don't need or want concrete in this case. So what we're going to do, the first thing we've got to do is select the structural deck here. You'll see that as a component, it's separate component, and it'll say structural deck, and right now it says 00, and that's because it's not being used as structure. And so if we want it used as structure, what we have to do is say bound layer above, and instead use standalone deck. So now we've got a standalone deck, and we can now delete this. And so we got just the steel inch deck. Now, later we're going to add insulation on top of this and roofing membrane and all that. But right now, that's all we need. Now, when we talked earlier and looked at our decking here, we determined that all we needed was 1.5-inch deck here to span the distance. So we want 1.5-inch deck. Well, what we're going to do is have to choose from a different deck profile. These are profiles that are used to do an extrusion for the decking. And you'll notice this is the only one we have. So what I'm going to do is, for right now, I'm just going to close this down and say OK. We'll save what we've been doing, say OK again. And then I'm going to go in and load in. I'm going to have to cancel out of my floor/roof here and go to insert, load a family. And I've already been here before, but if you go into US Imperial and you go down here to profiles, you'll see a whole variety of different profiles for walls and stairs and railings and all kinds of stuff. And metal deck is right in here. And you'll see two types, non-composite and composite. Okay, a non-composite deck is one that just uses formwork for the concrete, and so it adds nothing to the structure. There's no structural, it's fairly thin, and it's used just as formwork. Okay, with the assumption that the deck and any rebar or wire mesh we put into the deck is that's going to be its strength. It's going to come from that. But in this case, we want to use a composite deck, because a composite deck implies that the metal's thick enough to actually span and provide strength. Uh, so we're going to open all of those and then go back in now to our structure, go back into our floor/roof. We saved, we should have saved, didn't we? Did we not save it? I thought we saved it. Oh well, we'll just go in real quickly and create it again, I guess. I guess we didn't save it. Okay, duplicate it. 1.5-inch, 1 and 1/2-inch metal deck only. And we're going to go into edit here. Once again, select the structural deck. We're going to say it's standalone. We're going to delete now the concrete because we don't need it anymore. And then if we go in here and look at deck profiles and we open this up, voila, we now have 1.5-inch deck profile. So we're going to select the 1.5-inch deck profile. And that should do it. So we're going to say OK to that. And then OK to that. And we now have 1.5-inch deck, and it's pretty simple from that point on. All we're going to do is from the center of that wall, I went back into my top of wall, and from the center of the wall here, I'm going to draw that deck. And so I'm going to snap to the end point of that center and the end point of that center. And I'm going to lock those into position. Oh, no, 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 no. I don't want it to the center of the wall. I'm sorry. I just messed up. I'm going to undo that and undo that and undo that. And we want it to go to the inside of the wall, okay? Because once again, our parapet goes up, right? So if we went into it, we'd be embedding it into the, we don't want to do that. So we're going to go to the inside of the wall. So I'm going to snap to here and then to here. We're going to scroll over. And then I'm going to lock this to the inside of the wall once again so that if we move anything, our decking will move with us. Now you're going to see these two bars right here, and what that means is that's the direction of the span. The ribs are running in this direction, which is what we want. Okay, if it was running in the other direction, then what we would want to do is select this, and we could define the different direction. We can also define if we wanted this to slope. Okay. Um, But to define the span direction, we use this little icon right here, okay? And that's the span direction. And then we're going to come in and select the line that is going to be the direction of the span. So if I select this one over here, okay, now the span is parallel to the joist, and we don't want that. So we want it to be in that direction. So now it's in the appropriate direction, okay? The ribs are running with our wall section there. So I'm going to say OK to that. Uh, now it appears that it's, I can't tell if it's sitting on top of the deck or not, but let's go into our wall section here and see. No, it's not. Okay, so we want it to offset, okay, and we want it to offset from here to the very top of there, right? So we're going to use an offset, but we need to know what that distance is going to be. And so that distance is going to be from there to, come on, 3 inches. Okay, I think it probably has to be also including the depth of this. So let's measure that again. So we want it from the bottom here to the top there, right? Come on, quit snapping there. I need that to be perpendicular. There we go, 4.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to select that. We're going to offset it by a positive 4.5 inches, 4.5 inches. Then we'll apply that. And now our deck is sitting up on top of our joist, which is where we want it. Okay, we've got it in the right place. There's a lot of things we need to do to finish the enclosure of the building, but we're going to do that when we get into enclosure or the envelope of the building. The only other thing is, let's take a look at this. You'll notice that we don't see the little ribbing. That's because our wall section is cut parallel to the ribbing. So to see the little ribbing, we need to look at it from the other direction. And to do that, we're going to create another wall section right here. So let's go to, and we can just go top of wall, and we're going to create another view. And that view is going to be a section, and it'll be a wall section, and we'll just do it right here, perpendicular to there. And let's open that up, and let's set this to medium so that we can see more. And we can see here's our deck. Now eventually there'll be insulation that's going to be on top of this, and then a roofing membrane. But right now it looks pretty good. And so that really that's all of the structure for this building. Of course, there's all kinds of stuff that have to be added to enclose the building and waterproof it. and everything, and of course interior systems. But that is that is the so let me rename this, and we'll call this wall section, and it's along the two uh, okay, grid line. I think that's right. Yeah, it's along the two grid lines, so we'll just call it wall section 2. And so now we've got our footing in, we've got a slab in, we have our wall section in, and also then let's set the wall section to 1/2 inch while we're here. Where is it? Okay, so we'll set it to 1/2 inch so we get a little bit more detail. And so you can see right here, this is our building pad right there. Well, that's the slab, but the building pad's right there. And the wall and our joist and our deck. And so that completes the structural elements of this building. And the next assignment, we're going to cover the structure of steel frame construction.